And we are back. Welcome to the Live Wire Sports Channel podcast. Come on, brother Todd Jones back with me again. What's going on?
Yes, sir. Good to be back. Good to be back here in Chico.
Good to be back, man. It's got a lot to discuss. Game one of the finals is done, and it did not turn out. I think how anyone expected. Celtics
You.
made quite the comeback at the end, and I'm just gonna go on record and say that was fluke. Um, Al Horford has been in the league for an infinite amount of years, and has never in his life shot like that. Derek White was hitting some of the craziest shots he's ever hit in his life. Marcus Smart was hitting fall away threes and stuff. It was just they were hitting shots throughout the game, but Golden State never really pulled away, and so you never really felt super comfortable. They had a big third, and so you kind of kind of figured that Boston might throw in the towel and kind of call it a quits early, but
Yeah.
it just didn't go that way.
So I had a funny situation that happened with this game because I was at work watching it, and just like on my way home during the third quarter, Golden State was having their usual third quarter explosion,
hmm
and they scored 38 points to Boston's 24.
Right.
I'm like, okay, Golden State doing what they normally do. This game is pretty much over. I'm just gonna still try to rush to get home, see if anything else happens. And when I get home, and then when I see the incredible flip flop that happened, I'm like, what? How? What did I miss? And then I see Horford having 26. I'm like, 26? I'm like, okay, so Tatum must be going off like 40. Nah, he just had 12. Okay. Jalen Brown had 24. Okay, I see that. Marcus Smart having 18. Okay. Derek White was 21. Okay. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I did not see this coming. Uh, I did have Boston still at one at Golden State.
Uh huh.
I didn't think it was going to be game one. I thought it was going to be game two.
So I think being a Golden State fan, I think a lot of people assumed that my perspective would be that we're just going to protect home court. I am not stupid enough to disrespect Boston and think that they are not fully capable of beating any team on the road. I'm on the same page with you though. I did not expect it to be game one. Golden State is normally pretty good about protecting home court, but it is a new iteration of the team, even though the core is practically the same. There are a few things that did throw me off. It was good seeing Iguodala back. It was also weird seeing how tight the rotation was, considering that we've given guys a bunch of minutes. And one thing that, I think everybody had a question about was, is GP2 going to return? Is Iguodala even going to be healthy? I wasn't sure that he was even going to play game one. So when he came in, when he checked in, I was like, oh, wow, he's actually going to play tonight. So I
Yeah.
think it was some good surprises there. Boston, as a team, they just were disciplined enough to stay together. So you have to give credit to the coaching job, and you have to give credit to the guys for hitting shots. But you also kind of look at it as like, okay, again, on the biggest stage, you've been playing in the league for however many years. That's fluke. Like this is what I was saying before. Like do that. You know what I'm saying? Do that again, dude. Like come on.
Because I'm like, it's weird. Because Steph Curry got off to a nuclear start
Yes.
with 21 points in the first quarter. I'm like, okay, Steph Curry is on his way to 50. No big deal. That's what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Because having a quarter like that, then to only go only a so many amount of points, like 15 points for the rest of the game. I'm like, what was the energy at? Like what happened?
So I wasn't surprised that Boston is really good at making quick adjustments at the beginning of quarters. So normally the looks that you normally were starting off getting, they're pretty good about taking those away. So I wasn't shocked that Steph, didn't score as much. It wasn't that he wasn't as efficient or anything like that, Boston was just smart enough to say we're gonna deny you the ball, and if you come down in the lane like he was doing, we're gonna force you to play makers instead of just letting you go over the top of Rob Williams, and because he's a really good shot blocker, and Horford is also really good at staying vertical. They have a great switching team, and they're a very lengthy team, and so I can see where they took a lot of the same looks away that Steph was getting. Because at first you could really see that they were like nervous and they were jittery and they were kind of shaking it off throughout the game. I think you saw a lot of that on Jordan Poole as well. He really struggled.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes to. I think this is going to be a great series to put the young guys in. It's not like the experience of playing, say for example, when you played LeBron all those years, and you had other guys who had a level of familiarity with winning. So to me, having I think Steve shortening up the rotation wasn't as smart. I think it would have been a good opportunity to throw out a guy like Kaminga or Toscano just to kind of see who can generate some energy and get some stops.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I definitely noticed like Boston is definitely all the teams that the Warriors faced in some variation just rolled up into one.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have your star guys, but you also have that defense. And you have like multiple guys that has the ability to surprisingly take over some nights and just give Jalen Brown and Tatum like a reprieve, a break. Help that, which is like what Jokic didn't have with Denver in the first round.
This is true.
Clearly, just didn't have like the experience in the shooting in the second round.
A bunch of savages.
And the Mavericks, when they had the shooting, it was just defensively they still had some shortcomings.
Yeah, I think we'll discuss the Mavs thing a little bit later, but I definitely get what you mean. I think they're just a different beast, right? When I look at the Boston team, it really reminds me of when Golden State actually first started winning championships. It kind of is one of those things where you go from being the hunter to the hunt head. Like they were this young team, just fearless, great defensively, but they could be really explosive offensively, of course. Obviously, different types of talent, but the makeup of the team, the principle of the team, not offensively but defensively, it's pretty much the same. And so I have something pulled up here, right? Because we're talking about the progression of the series, and we're talking about kind of how things went in game, and something that me and you had to address is the plus minus, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I need somebody to make it make sense for me. This is me partially venting. This is me also trying to get some understanding. So bear with me. So I have the numbers pulled up here, because this really confused me. Okay. You know what? Okay. You know what? I'm gonna say the plus minus argument for the next one. Okay. Because I was, what? I'm gonna save it for that. But
Okay.
but what we do have to address is that okay, Tatum didn't shoot particularly well. Okay. Now I don't understand the plus minus because Draymond had a bad game and was only a -1 somehow, and I'm kind of trying to understand that because that didn't that might I don't know how they came to the conclusion that Draymond was just a -1. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't do any of the things that he normally does. He had some moments, but he became a real big liability offensively, which they cannot have if they expect to win this series because the team really does go as Draymond goes. Obviously, they rely on Steph for the sake of the offense. I'm curious to see how Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole adjust and stuff like that. But for Tatum to to shoot how he shot and to still get 12, 13 assists, the strides that he's taken this year is absolutely incredible. I don't think that anybody saw him taking leaps this fast and leaps this massive. What did you think about the way he played as a whole? Because I truly believe great players, it's not always just about your scoring. Even though you may be a great scorer, you have to find different ways to impact the game when the ball is not going through. And for him to rely on his playmaking and his teammates to follow through, I thought that was huge.
Yeah, yeah. It's the next step that we want a lot of people to take when we see them as like a potential like superstar.
Mm-hmm.
And he's starting to take those steps in terms of being able to trust his teammates, along with like doing things outside scoring, just like you said.
Right.
Like seeing him get a double double with assists is something that nobody would see coming, especially in the finals. Especially. So for him to take those steps, like all this is doing is like, yeah, do I think they can win the championship this year? They have a chance. Are they gonna do it? In my opinion, not necessarily. I still got Warriors winning it,
Mm-hmm.
but these are really big foundations that Jason Tatum needs to take that next step of being considered one of the faces of the league. He's been taking all the right steps this whole playoff run.
I agree with that, but I do think that it goes a step further than that. When you look at what he's done in his short career, him and Brown, who to me are one of the best duos in the league, and they don't get recognized enough for that. There were a lot of idiots saying break them up at the beginning of the year. How they came to that conclusion, I don't know, but they've always been since they've started really after the year that Kyrie left. They've always gelled well, and they've really always kind of fed off of each other. When Tatum was off, Jalen took over. When Jalen was off, Tatum took over. And then you had Marcus Smart, who was just a great two-way guy. And credit to him for developing his offense the way that he has. Because some of the shots dude was hitting was just absolutely absurd. They kept him in it, and it allowed Jalen to get hot later and kind of take over, even though, Tatum was off. So you got to give credit to them for developing. But as a duo, that so right now you have to kind of put them as a top five duo, in my opinion. The two-way play, I value two-way play more than just. It's a lot of great offensive duos, but there's not a lot of great two-way tandems in the league right now. And you look at certain ones, you might not look at a Jimmy Butler and a Bam Adebayo as that high on the list, but you would look at a Kawhi Leonard and a Paul George. But to me, you kind of have to look at with Steph and Clay, Tatum and Brown. I think has now reached a level where it's like you got to get a good night's rest before you go in there and play those guys.
Yeah, it's not gonna be an easy time. It's
No,
not gonna be an easy time.
because they've done this before in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. They just continue to take steps closer to winning the championship because now they're in the fights. Like when I think it was Jason Tatum's rookie year, he made it to the conference finals against LeBron.
Yep, that was the year that Kyrie was in the MVP race. That was his first year in Boston. Gordon Hayward had got hurt the first game, and they gained that confidence. Then the next year they kind of yeah
They hit a second year wall basically.
yeah because the wall that they were supposed to hit their first year but never did.
Yeah.
And then they went back to normal. They've kind of had some up and down years, just kind of with the turnover, with the roster and stuff like that, and even the changing of staff in the front office and stuff like that. But I think Ime Udoku, to be honest, I wasn't big on the hiring at first. I wasn't sure of his experience with them trying to win now, and I have to give them credit for one sticking with Ime throughout all of the struggles that they had to start the year, where they were very inconsistent, and then to bring back. I'm a big fan of Tice. I think you know that. I love the way Tice has performed all year. He's just one of those guys that all year long, you can rely on, but in the playoffs, he takes that next step. Now, I'm very curious to see how he performs on the biggest stage, what his minutes are going to look like, what his role is going to be, because athletics wise, I don't see the matchup that's going to work best for him because Golden State doesn't have a lot of size, especially now with Wiseman being out and Looney being the five. So they're relying on a lot of threes to play the four. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Tice gets used. I'm very curious to see how Pritchard is going to thrive going against Jordan Poole throughout the matchup. That's going to be a fun matchup when you think about how explosive the two are at scoring. I don't really see a lot of clear-cut advantages towards any team. So it's going to be – I'm very curious about, the adjustments that the coaches are going to make because I'm sure it's going to be a chess match at some point. But I'm also curious about just how spicy the players are going to get during the matchups, because they're two great defensive teams. So it's very likely to flare up at some point.
Yeah, Tim's will at some point will flare up, but right now it's definitely. I'm definitely just interested what's gonna happen next. I wonder because to see Golden State really mess up the fourth quarter the way they did, which is very unusual, especially when they have the third quarter that they normally have.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like normally, like when they have that, game's over. Pack it up. We'll see y'all game two.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what was different with this one is just that Boston Celtics has been very resilient, and they have been battle tested throughout this entire playoffs, which I think
Absolutely.
is a big difference. Because like, hey, we've been down like this before. We can still come back.
Yeah,
And
they've got a history. They may not have been in the finals, but they got a history of winning. They've been in enough conference finals to kind of have some level of experience with it. And like I said, the only thing that's really intact is the core for Golden State. So it's not like again there's just some drastic and clear cut advantage. I do think it's a foolish statement though that I keep hearing is like, oh, experience sometimes can be overrated. I totally disagree with that. I don't think that in any situation experience is ever overrated. But with this team, where it's a mix of young guys and old guys, where we've never seen that work because no one's ever really tried it, it makes it very interesting to see how Steph is going to be a vocal leader. Is he going to lead with this play? Is he going to be a little bit louder in the locker room? Is we already know Draymond's going to Draymond. I'm very curious to see how Clay leads and how his play impacts him mentally. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And the whole experience is overrated. Okay, well, if you had if you had like a moment where you walk into a wall
Mm-hmm.
and you hurt yourself, you gain experience. That wall hurts. Don't run into the wall again. Is it overrated if you keep running to the wall? No, like you gain experience. It's like, okay, I've been. This is the first time going to the finals. This is a eye opener for me. Okay, this is where you need to absorb and try to take things in because playing on a big stage like that,
Mm-hmm.
there could be so much going on through your head. Everything could be like just, it could be so fast. It's kind of like when players have like their rookie years where they saying like, "Yo, everything is going so fast." Like it was literally, I thought yesterday was the first game of the season. Now we're 60 games in.
Yeah.
So it's like Steph Curry even said himself, it's like I learned to appreciate the finals more. Like I'm happy to be here. Like he's he's playing within like the moment.
Yeah, and I've been winning takes a lot out of you. And when they were just winning how they were, it's very easy to take that for granted. But I even remember hearing Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars talk about it with Stephen Clay, and they were just talking about how taxing it is to play all year long like that with the short breaks and then the pressure and the nonsense that comes with it and stuff like that. But now that they've been out of it, they've not had the chance to compete to finally be back there. I think you're going to see a massive jump in Steph's game as he's worked on his body, and you can see defensively the leaps he's taken. So I think it's gonna be fun, but I am curious about your perspective of like what do you think expectation wise? Like what are some of the expectations that you have for this matchup going forward?
Well, first off, this matchup, in my opinion, I see it going 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's not like there are advantages that Golden State could have against the Celtics, but I also can say the same thing about the Celtics with Golden State. Golden State is a solid defensive team, but I do believe that the Celtics are a better defensive team than Golden State.
Yeah.
I think they have better perimeter defense, well, more perimeter defenders than Golden State do. I think Golden State just have more well-known defensive guys.
Mm-hmm.
And also, plus Boston does have defense player in Marcus Smart, which, in my opinion, is an X factor because his job is going to be for the whole series is Steph Curry. That's going to be his job. Like you don't have to put his name up on the board. You ain't got to tell him. He already knows that he's going to be guarding Steph Curry for the whole series, and he got to do his best without fouling. Like Draymond Green, he's going to have his objective is basically Tatum or Brown. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the main two guys. Now he has Clay and Wiggins and whatnot, but I could definitely see Draymond's going to have to take more of the defensive load because Klay Thompson, this is, his first finals in 2 years. Like he hadn't played in 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and he still shows that he still has to get those that rust off. That's hard to get 2 years off,
Hmm.
especially when you had an Achilles and was an ACL injury.
Yeah,
Now, was that on the same leg, or was it on two? Was it on like one on
two
the left and the
different.
other on the right?
One on the left, one on the right.
Okay, so like both your legs took a major blow in like in different areas. Now,
Hmm.
luckily for Clay, his game does not revolve around his athleticism. Luckily,
Hmm.
but being able to run up and down and like run up and down, shooting jump shots, trying to stop and go, make sure like all the steps, you know, that you're okay is the easy part. The hard part is the mental barrier. There's a mental is like you know that you're okay, that you know you're fine, you know you can do it.
Yeah.
Don't need to be hesitant. Don't need to be hesitant now. They need you.
Well,
And
well,
you're in basically the most intense part of the entire NBA, the finals.
one thing about it, from what I've seen, he don't look hesitant at all. Clay has been putting up a couple shots. It's like, whoa, slow down there. That's not something you would normally take. You can kind of see it at times. He's been kind of forcing it, trying
Yeah,
to
impressive.
yeah, pressing to get that rhythm, to his detriment a lot of the times, and it does kind of raise concern. Like, is this going to impact him, you know, going forward in the series? Is it gonna be? Is this just for now type of thing? Are they gonna be able to get him some easier shots? You know, what kind of coverages is Boston gonna throw at them? Or are they even really concerned about his offense as much, or are they just trying to make him work defensively and put those legs to the test? You know, so I'm very curious to see defensively what changes are going to be made, because from what we saw, Steph Curry was giving Marcus Smart the business. Like, until they
Yeah,
started kind of crowding him, Steph was really doing whatever he wanted. And then at the end, something that people don't consider, watching that game, is that Golden State just started missing shots out of nowhere. They couldn't even make layups at the end. And it really didn't have a whole lot to do with Boston's defense. Boston, they dared them to shoot. They were knocking them down, to their credit. But and Steph was still hitting shots at the end of the game. Until they finally were able to kind of force him, the ball out of his hands, and kind of force him to, be on the opposite side of the court as the ball. So they made some great adjustments, and things just were not going their way. I think Wiggins has to be a little bit more aggressive about his attack. Some of the shots he was kind of taking, trying to go at Rob Williams, he wasn't going up quite as aggressively. So hopefully he's all good. But I think, you said Marcus Smart's the X factor. I think Wiggins and Poole, particularly, are going to be the X factors. They're
yeah,
gonna need Poole to play the quality of basketball that we know he's clearly capable of doing in the playoffs. But Wiggins' defense and his aggression offensively is going to make a huge difference, because his size, he's likely to disrupt Jalen and Tatum, and being able to throw between Draymond, Clay, himself, Toscano, Kaminga, Iguodala. I think having all those different bodies to be able to throw at the top two scorers. I'm very curious to see if Boston sticks with the team-oriented offense going forward, or if they're going to start jacking shots and being top-heavy with relying on Tatum, Brown, and Smart for shots. Again, like I said, I just don't see Al Horford. Al. Um,
yeah.
I really don't see him having 26 points. Like they were really. Al Horford looked like Dirk last night. Like, dude was really pulling him with confidence. I'm just like, he's never in his life done that. So it'll be, if he could shut me up and do that again, then hey, hats off to you. But
And my
I
thing
feel like I'm gonna
is,
be talking for a minute.
and my thing is like that. That's okay. Al Horford doesn't have to do that again.
I think
Because
he does if they're gonna
like I
win
said
this.
earlier, like is he capable of it? Well, he just did it, so he's clearly capable. But he doesn't have to, because if Boston stays with that team-oriented offensive scoring style, you don't know who's going to be going off. Because it may be Horford, or it could be Derek White, it could be Smart, it could be whoever. Like, if they let the ball find the hot guy in the open man, you be straight.
We'll see how opening is. But again, you have to. You have to look at also the faults of Golden State. If a guy's hitting shots, and I think me and you've had this conversation before, I'm pretty sure we have. I don't understand psychologically why players do this because you always hear these guys saying it's an NBA player. Everybody can hit those shots. Yet your instinct and your game plan is to dare an NBA player to hit those shots, especially one with a skill set like Al Horford has. Like that to me didn't make sense. And I know Draymond spoke about really being lazy, not really closing out during and stuff like that. I mean, that fourth quarter collapse was just it was weird to watch. It was odd because you don't see them do that. But something of concern that I also saw was how, but Boston like they were celebrating a little too hard. And when a team is young like that and they don't have finals experience and they're kind of up like that, to me that does raise a level of concern. I give them credit for not being defeated and coming out and stealing one on the opponent's home court. That's great. You guys have proven you can do that. But you have to learn how to take your wins and not being too high or getting too low. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see if in the third quarter they get hit even harder. Will they concede? Will they fold? Will they be able to make the proper adjustments? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very curious to see because I doubt that's going to be a repeat game. Again, Golden State just couldn't pull away. Boston just did everything they could to stay in it, and they hit tough shots all game long. And normally, when Steph is playing like that and you're in it, then yeah, you feel good about your chances. And I give him credit for, like I said, for sticking with it and not pulling the plug too early. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what the defensive strategies are going to be, what adjustments are going to be made, if Tatum's going to be able to bounce back and get hot and make a big difference from this series.
I think to me, definitely Golden State will definitely bounce back in Game 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're gonna learn from this, obviously, and I think they're just going to not only attack Boston from the jump, but they're most definitely going to make sure that they finish out that fourth quarter. Because that's all it really was, in my opinion. Like,
I agree.
if they would have done what they need to do in the fourth quarter, we'll have a totally different conversation right now. And if Circuit would have had a little help from Clay, because Clay had 15, and like Poole may have had like I believe like 12, I believe.
Yeah, he didn't
So
really contribute much.
yeah, it wasn't much. Like if he would have had at least somebody else giving you like 20 plus, then y'all would have been fine. But nobody else outside Steph was over 20.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't. I think if it gets to Game 6, Clay will go off, specifically for that game. So it just seems to be his thing for whatever reason. But again, Wiggins to me was the one. Jordan Poole plays a lot like Steph, so I assume that with him not having the finals experience that Steph had, I kind of figured that they'd be able to throw some things at him that could kind of shake him up, throw him off his rhythm. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can get those, shake those jitters off pretty quickly or not. Or if the scheme was just really something that worked out in Boston's favor. So it's a lot of things to look out for. It's a lot of things to consider. But I think I told you, they let Steph down. When your superstar is having that kind of night and you guys have basically locked up the best player on the other team. And I know Jalen Brown finished the game strong, but he wasn't really playing super great up until the end. When your guys playing well and the other guys aren't, you have to capitalize on that. Because games like that, when you don't protect home court, can come back to haunt you.
Yeah, they do. They definitely do.
So I know that they normally win on the road, but this is a different team. It's a different beast. These guys are young. They don't care. I feel like they fight each other a lot in practice, and you don't want to be trying to tussle with teams that don't care about themselves. If they don't care about themselves, you know they ain't gonna care about you. So,
Especially teams that just fight and they stick with it no matter what. Like we seen that where teams they don't finish the job, they end up being on the losing end, and they one just look dumbfounded like, "Yo, what just happened?" Don't believe us? You can ask the Timberwolves.
don't get me started. But I'm glad you said that because I did see some nonsensical errors, particularly to start off the game when they were guarding Steph. Love Marcus Smart, but dude, when you see that your teammate, y'all know the assignment, and you see Steph Curry coming up the middle of the floor with 5 feet of space, and you don't leave your guy to go pick up Steph Curry and getting mad at your teammates for also the lack of miscommunication, but you're the defensive leader, you're the anchor, right? So there was a lot of miscommunication. Steph got an abnormal amount of open shots. Clay did too. Wiggins got a couple early on, and he was able to get wide open for a hit. And it was just like, what are y'all doing? Um, now,
Well,
yeah,
well, the reason for that is because this entire playoff run, all right, the entire playoff run for Boston, who did they face from a shooting standpoint anything like Golden State?
ain't nothing on this planet like we're going to State's door. But you've had Brooklyn, which can really shoot the ball, and Miami, who can really shoot the ball.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you had Brooklyn that had the offense run through KD without any ball movement,
This is
any
true.
man movement.
Yeah.
Once it got to KD, everybody just stopped. Look at KD,
Mm.
and that's it. So you had guys that was able to come off of their guy to come and help KD. I mean, he also had Kyrie too. Yeah, when it got to Kyrie, everybody just stopped. Look at Kyrie. That's it. That's all it was. So when you go to Golden State, when you stop, look at Draymond, you lose sight of Steph, and Steph has like 5 feet of room to shoot.
Yeah.
Then also you're like, yo, who man is that? They're not used to that. They're not used to people moving off the ball,
This is true.
especially if it's the main guy, like the star of the team, the engine of the team. And then his running right hand man, Klay Thompson's doing the same thing. And then Jordan Poole, who can also do the same thing. Wiggins, who moves off the ball, can do the same thing. Kevin Looney is getting cuts to the basket. Like everybody, there's more action off the ball than there is on the ball.
Which is it's so it's such beautiful basketball to watch, but on the opposing side, I'm sure it's some of the most annoying. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it has to be incredibly frustrating because it's like I know they mentioned before when they said Greg Popovich said that you can have two bigs on the court that can't shoot if they can both pass, and so you got 5 guys on the court at all times that can pass are looking to pass first. Like when you look at Steph, Steph isn't always looking to immediately score. Like he knows the gravity of his offense. He'll run for the intent of getting someone a better open look.
Yeah, decoy.
Yeah, and that makes a huge difference. And so that's why I was saying I'm very curious about the stagnance of because sometimes you can see Golden State get too unselfish, so much so to the fault, to a fault where they're overpassing
Just turn
and
over the ball.
yeah, turning over the ball. But at the same time, on the opposite side, I've seen Boston go far too hard about relying on Tatum and Brown, and it gets so top heavy, it throws other guys out of rhythm. So it's kind of like which team is going to conform first. Is Golden State going to end up, because they're a little bit younger. They, they got some young guys on there that want to play a little bit more upbeat. Are they going to be sloppy because of the nerves, or is Boston going to revert to some of the bad old ways that they have, where it's like we got two ridiculous talents. Just give them the ball and let them go.
But to the credit of Boston, though, they did get the right head coach.
They got a great head coach. For Tatum to go 3 of 17, and for guys like whoever to go 9 of 12, it says here, Jaylen Brown to go 10 of 23. Like you never looked at them and said, "Oh, they don't have like." They looked very confident, and you can kind of see that he's coached them up to the point where they felt comfortable enough to be like, "Oh, okay, y'all, they had a good third quarter, cool. What now?" Pritchard came in and had 3 or 4 timely shots. Grant Williams tried to play a chess match with the wrong guy, in my opinion. Getting into a barking contest with Draymond Green. Nah, wouldn't advise it.
No. And that's another guy, too, that could be an unsung hero, Grant Williams. like he had moments in certain series where he stepped up and helped out in a way that Boston needed him. It's happened.
I think that this series is not going to be a great one for him, right? Because one thing about it, that while they both are great defensive teams, they are two types of defensive teams, right? Boston's a very physical defensive team, which is why they were able to beat Brooklyn with ease, which is why they, were able to kind of wear down Giannis after a while. And I'm sure Miami thought that they were going to be able to bully him, and we see that that didn't go how they expected, right? I'm curious to see what matchup, and I'm sure what they're going to try to do is when Marcus is out, probably throw Grant on Steph. But I see that physicality working against them. You see what I'm saying? Like some teams are so physical that against the right one, and it's not like Golden State flops a lot, but sometimes when you get overly physical with the team and you're the bigger team, it's gonna show when you guys give contact. Versus if the smaller team is hitting y'all, it's not gonna show as much. Y'all are the bigger, strong. See what I'm saying? So I'm very curious to
Yeah,
see if that physicality that they're gonna try to bring is gonna work for them or against them throughout the series.
because in a way, I could say the same about the Warriors too, because the Warriors have never faced this on in this playoff run alone.
This is
Uh,
true.
a full a full healthy basketball team that's able to play on both ends of the floor.
This is true.
Like Denver was missing Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and relied heavily on Jokic for everything offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the Grizzlies have potential, but they still got a whole lot to learn. And plus, they had problems with shooting the ball. Jared Jackson was their best shooter. No disrespect to Jared Jackson, because Jared Jackson did a good job, but
No, he did not. Let's not lie about it.
I'm not, that's not like bro. They dared him to shoot it. He hit the shots he was supposed to hit. That's the thing, and that's the thing. It's just that the issue was that they just didn't have the experience and made costly turnovers too many times.
Putting my
And
personal
and
dislike aside,
that's due to John Morant being young and just trying to go and not looking to facilitate.
I'm not gonna put that all on Ja. Um, I think that that was more of a coaching mindset of you're the guy. We're just gonna give you the ball and let you go. Because that is a common mindset now if you have a scoring guard in the league. So, and we weren't really. I mean, we nowadays, what you're not gonna stop any of the top point guards anyways. You just try to slow them down and contest it as best as you can. I'm not gonna get into the Memphis thing because you know how I feel about them, and
I know.
this is not a conversation right now where I know I'm gonna keep my personal bias out of it. Maybe at a different moment in time, but not tonight.
But my point is that John, they have the star, but he didn't know how to be effective outside of having the ball in his hands consistently. The well against Dallas, you have the shooting is there, but they was tired. Say they never been this far in Luca's time being a Maverick. Never been this far.
They haven't been
And you
this
could tell
far.
it was like it was just literally playoff fatigue.
I don't know if it was just playoff fatigue. I think for me, if you're talking about Luca in particular, Luca is clearly not in basketball shape. Like, dude played amazing, but you can tell that he's not in shape. And that play style that he likes to play is where it's like, I'm bigger and stronger than you guys. I'm gonna pound you. It takes more of a toll on him than it did on Golden State. So I think I get what you're saying, but I kind of look at it as the same thing for both sides. Well, with some differences. I think Dallas has the better offense. Memphis has the better culture right now in the sense of they know that their identity is defense first. They kind of still have that grindhouse mentality,
Yeah,
and so they don't look at their offense super great outside of a Ja. But Dallas they're all offense. They have some guys that can play defense, I just think that Golden State was not the right matchup for them. They're not a big team. They tried to a small ball team, and that's been the culture of Golden State for years now. So, we'll get into some of the other matchups, later on. But in terms of this Boston Golden State matchup, I think is it's one of the best we've seen in a very long time. I don't see there being any mismatches or advantages in terms of talent, and I'm just curious to see how, like you said, the X factors are going to step up and play. I'm very curious to see what adjustments they're going to throw at each other from a star power perspective. Are they going to play into Golden State's hands? Is Golden State going to try to get more physical and play into Boston's hands? So it's very curious to see. And I think because both teams don't get fouls either, I'm very excited to see the refs not get super involved in this. There are not a lot of teams that get a lot of calls to go their way that dictate the game. So it's going to be nice to see if the refs don't interfere as much as they have throughout some of these other series.
Yeah, like this is the final. It's like, bro, you can't, don't. There's no. It's not the time to make a name for yourself here.
Don't try to be a hero.
Do not be the eye of a storm, because it's going to hurt.
Yeah, this fan's crazy now. So it'd be wise to just
Yeah,
that whistle,
these
leave that
fans
alone.
are different, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah,
It's not a good difference. It's not a good different at all.
we saw how they were treating Charles Barkley. So hey, uh, best of luck to him. But
Yeah, yeah.
with that being said, very exciting series. That's our little discussion and coverage of Game One. Any closing remarks you want to make?
Honestly, I said I'm happy to be going here. I'm happy to see how this series goes. I'm looking forward to game two.
That's right. When we will back, we will be back with you guys with more coverage of the series and getting back to you guys from Game Two and going forward. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the Live Wire Sports Channel podcast with Todd Jones. I'm your host Jay, and we will get to you later. Y'all have a good night. Peace.